You just saw a snapshot of what it is that we'll be looking at this morning. Security, especially as it affects the primary level of cover, which is the Nigerian police. Yes, they have the first line of duty, or their first assignment is to protect the Nigerian people, and they're supposed to be the first line of cover, at least internally, within the country. But all has not been well for a number of years now. The question is, are we working to get them better? At what pace are we working? There's still a number of challenges facing us in that regard. What are we doing to tackle some of those challenges? We have with us this morning Mr. Frank Umba, let's say Commissioner of Police Frank Umba, who is the Force Public Relations Officer. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, Amachree, and good morning to our viewers. A happy new year to all of us.
May it be a happy one indeed. And congratulations on your recent promotion.
Thank you.
Well, you have seen, chronicled right there, some of the challenges that we still currently face when it comes to security in Nigeria. One of them, as was mentioned in that report, is jungle justice. And people oftentimes resort to jungle justice because they do not have confidence that if these people are taken to the police or, taken through the length of the process of the long arm of the law, that they will eventually get the justice that they deserve. Especially for the victims and also even for the people who have perpetrated whatever crime they're being accused of. What do you think the police, or not what do you think now, what do you know the police is doing to address some of these things and imbue confidence in the populace that it's protecting, as coming on the heels especially of the NSAS protests?
Okay, thank you, Amachree. If you take a look at the world overview of security situation, or you look at the global security trend, you'll discover that indeed the world is facing a lot of challenges when it comes to security. Even countries that hitherto were considered violence-free or immune from certain types of violence are beginning to experience all kinds of challenges. Globalization has not helped issues in that regard. There are so many other areas where globalization has played very positive roles. And then the issues of climate change and recently economic recessions hitting the world, and then of course compounded by the COVID-19 pandemics. And so you see a whole lot of challenges, and the truth again is that some of these criminogenic factors are things that fundamentally are not under even the direct control of the law enforcement agents themselves. But despite that, the law enforcement agents are expected to continue to deal with it. In the beginning of 2020, the projection from the Global Peace Index was that the last decade has seen a massive rise in civil unrest and riots across the world. As a matter of fact, their statistics shows that that civil unrest and riots has doubled over the last one decade, while things like general strike has actually quadrupled. If you look at CNBC report, they also projected, even in early part of 2020, that over 40% of the world will witness civil unrest. And that exactly came to happen. So it's not like, and when you play in the global league, which Nigeria is playing in, it's difficult to stay completely immune. But again, these are not reasons for law enforcement agents to abdicate their responsibilities. You are employed, trained, equipped to deal with these issues, and you must continue to deal with them. So whether there is a pandemic, whether there are problems touching with energy security, food security, environmental security, whether there are issues that has to do with economic recessions, unemployment, and irrespective of the fact that these things are tied to the general crime rate, as law enforcement agencies, you are still expected to face your mandate and deal with them. And that's exactly what we're doing in Nigeria.
So, I appreciate the fact that you've set the background, the fact that, security challenges are evolving. There is no doubt that that is very true. However, the question is whether our own strategies, our police force, our security agencies are evolving as these challenges are evolving. Are we able to predict, for instance, I'll give you an instance with kidnapping. Kidnapping, maybe in the 90s, was not a popular crime here in Nigeria. We saw how it started, in the Niger Delta with foreigners, expatriates being kidnapped, people who worked for oil companies, and before you know what's happening, it became a business of some sort, it extended to the southeast, it became everyday Nigerians, and now it's come to the north of the country and it's taken a whole new dimension all over the country. We now have banditry, for instance. Some of these things, some people will say we could have predicted and we could have acquired capabilities or, training in that regard so that people have specialties, so to speak, to be able to handle these crimes. But it doesn't look like we have that already. What it looks like we've done is hands up in surrender to some of these challenges that confront us.
I politely beg to disagree. Actually, if you look at our trajectory, crime pattern and trends, you will say that the Nigeria police has done a whole lot. Let me give you an example. For example, at the beginning of the pandemic, we came up with our own analysis of the situation. We made projections. We made forecasts that were evidence-based. We said at the beginning of the pandemic, for example, that at the beginning of the lockdown that followed that followed the pandemic, we said clearly that at the beginning, in the first few days of the lockdown, there's going to be a general lull, a general drop in crime. But that subsequently, that we're going to see a rise in cybercrime. We predicted that. We said there's going to be a rise in sexual-based violence, rape, incest, and the rest of them. We did that prediction correctly. We said there's that possibility there's going to be riots because when people are held back and their means of livelihood are cut off and they begin to feel the heat and the stress of the lockdown, that they may begin to react and walk into the street. Exactly that also happens. So the truth again is we have that capacity and we do that all the time. Let me also give you a couple of other predictions that we made.
So it is one thing to predict. Some people say it's one thing to predict. The question is, what capacity did we develop to be able to tackle those things? Let me take one that is of interest to me. Sexual and gender-based violence, for instance. It was something that you correctly predicted, and it was something we saw expand and grow out of proportion during the lockdown. What capabilities, what specific capabilities would you say that the police developed over time or within that period to be able to address the emergency that will come up as a result, the emergency that will come up with SGBV as a result of the lockdown?
The moment we did that prediction, part of the things we did instantly is that the current Inspector General of Police, IGP Mohammed Abubakar Adamu, strengthened the first gender units because we expected there's going to be upsurge. So the first gender unit was immediately strengthened. And not only did we strengthen the first gender unit, we redeployed a lot of new hands into that unit, gave them specialized trainings. There were some states that heated to, they didn't have gender units, specialized gender units. We immediately set up specialized gender units in those commands. And as we were doing that, we partnered with UNICEF immediately and established a holding facility in Abuja, in Maitama, in the heart of Abuja, where we provided a a kind of temporary shelter for some of the victims who spoke out. Some of the victims who, because some of the victims even ran out of the homes where they were being sexually molested, abused, and oppressed. And we established that homes. And we expanded our partnership with other agencies that are also involved in the fight against sexual-based violence and crime. So we did that, and we projected that very correctly, and we worked assiduously and we also collaboratively with other agencies to begin to deal with that. But the challenge, let me just land, please. But the challenge with sexual-based violence is that sometimes these are crimes that occur screened off from the public. And sometimes a member, especially when a child or a woman is being molested by someone who has authority over her. Sometimes these are not crimes that you can easily detect. You don't have the capacity to install cameras in all homes. So it takes time sometimes before they are actually detected. Sometimes we get to know through accidental processes. A child gets pregnant, a child is infected with disease, and some other consequences which actually let the cat out of the bag. So that's the major problem. They are not like other crimes where as soon as they are happening, people get to know and people begin to blow the whistle.
But I'm sure people will definitely have questions on that. Let me flip it to Lagos now, where Ayo is standing by with another guest. Ayo.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. Well, very interesting conversations you've had with the Commissioner of Police, yes, CP Frank Kumba, on that one. But we also have here, by the way, as you may have seen in the opening slide, Dennis Amachree, a security consultant and former operative of the DSS. Thanks for joining us this morning. One of the things that's made the news very, very recently is that statement from the DSS that, there are plans by some elements, as they call it, to incite religious intolerance in pockets of places all over the nation. And a number of states were actually mentioned, 6 states specifically, and it cuts across whether it's the north or the south or the east or the west. It was immaterial. That list was quite copious. So what concerns me here is, okay, that information came out. Ordinarily, how should it be actioned? How should it be acted upon?
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. And congratulations, Frank. I've congratulated you before, but I congratulate you again. This particular issue, I don't know why it is even raising dust, because this is not the first time. The DSS has come out to alert people, inform people, because it is very necessary for the security agencies, after they collect intelligence, go ahead to inform the general public on where to be very careful, and then, of course, they still go after the target, or the source of those kind of information. Those ones will not be known to the public, because they either keep a surveillance on them or, really study them properly to know where it is coming from. But I was even surprised that some elements in the Christian Association of Nigeria have to go out and say that it was a panic alert, it was creating fear and stuff like that. I think that was very, very well misplaced.
Okay, well, so that has happened, and if that was misplaced, what then should be the reaction of people when they hear that kind of thing, and what are the people supposed to do?
When people hear an alert, what is it designed for? It is designed for you to be careful. If you are going towards Surulere, be very careful. There's a riot that is going to happen there. And
but given the history of Nigeria concerning religious, violence, intolerance, and all of that, should that even have come out in the first place? Shouldn't it be something that will be covertly handled by the DSS and alert the relevant security agencies who should nip it in the bud?
Like I told you, the relevant security agencies have been alerted. And then, of course, the public itself has to be alerted. I'll give you an example, just something that is going on right now in the United States. Many states have armed people who are getting ready to protest on the day that the new president-elect will be inaugurated. And the FBI is aware. And they've alerted the whole country that this is what is going to happen. But meanwhile, unknown to us, they must be having those people under surveillance, following them to see that they don't achieve what they are planning to achieve. So that's how it works in the intelligence world. It is not, some people say, why tell us? You know, if we don't tell you, you might not be aware. So when you are aware, then you take precautions that allow you to walk into it.
Okay. Well, one other issue that has made the news is, of course, that same report also says that relevant security agencies have been alerted to do the needful. But we're talking about crime and policing in Nigeria in this conversation now, and one wonders that the level of cohesion among the various security agencies. Well, one can say, for instance, in the north, one can say the police is either overwhelmed or even almost non-existent, because most of the time when we talk about insecurity in the north, many people refer their cases to the army, as opposed to the police, which is supposed to be in charge of internal security. So if you were to look at that issue from that angle, and a good number of conversations that go on, how would you say we have addressed it? I'll give you an example. We had a conversation with someone, I think it was in Katsina State, who said that there are people in the north, elements in the north, who go to the markets with a gun, AK-47 slung on their shoulders, and security agencies are aware, and no one is doing anything about it. So when people see that kind of thing, well, how do you expect them to react?
A lot of stories in the public space in Nigeria. And I can tell you one thing. Mba is there, Commissioner Mba is there to tell you that the country is under-policed. They don't have the capacity in terms of manpower to cover the ungoverned spaces that exist in this country. I remember when there was an attack in Adamawa State. You know, from one local government to the other, it takes about 4 or 5 hours before you can get to the other one. And they were attacking them. The law enforcement people cannot even get there. So one thing we could do to ameliorate this particular situation is to increase the manpower of the police. Increase the manpower. There are two things we can do, though. One is to increase the manpower, because right now, the police is under 400,000. In fact, let me tell you, the Army, Navy, Air Force, DSS, police, all put together, it's not up to 1 million. And we are 200 million Nigerians living in this country, in a very wide country. How can you police that? You know, so you either increase the capacity, or you balkanize the police. You know, get it down to the local so that the policing itself will go down to the rural people, where they will learn how to police themselves, either through state police or local government sheriffs or whatever. Community policing, fine. But you have to train them how to do this so that they now have the ears and eyes to watch out on what they want to do.
Well, you've brought up something that's been a touch point for me as a person, because when we talk about policing, talk about crime, talk about security, while we are expecting so much from security agencies, what do the security officials themselves expect from Nigeria? Exactly. Here now, I'm talking about the morale of various, security agencies across the entire architecture. We have heard cases where soldiers, protest, say they are not paid enough or not promoted enough. We have heard people in the police also say they have not been promoted, their morale is low. Some have been at the same level for so many years, leading to some of them, whether in the police, army, other security agencies, saying they're going to resign and stuff like that. On the one hand is the issue of the number, the numerical strength of the police. On the other hand is the morale of those ones who are there. How well are we doing from what you can
We're
see?
not doing very well. We're not doing very well. I'm happy you have the PPRO here. And of course, it can tell you, the salary-wise, the morale is low. The morale is low because they are not well taken care of. Or should I say, the structure that they have had cocooned them into a particular hole in such a way that it starts from training. You know, when you go to the training school, which kind of level of training are they having? You know, but it's not something that you want to come and talk in public, but it's something that the police authorities should look inward and do. Because a police officer who has to buy his uniform, you know, becomes a problem when he gets onto the streets. You know, it is very, very important because that neglect has been going on for years. You know, the police is the mothership of all the security agencies. All of them, DSS, EFCC, Federal Road Safety, all of them came from the NCDC, came from the police. But when you remove these people, because of special events, like when Murtala was killed, former head of state, then the NSO was formed, which later became the DSS. The NSO was formed out of that. But you try to take care of the NSO more than the mothership where they came from. You know, so this disparity has been there. And government have to look at it properly because you cannot continue relegating them and then expecting maximum, you know, production out of them.
Does that play any role in the synergy or otherwise with other security agencies?
Yeah, well, you know, Nigeria's security agencies have always acted in silos. We are supposed to be having a fusion where they share intelligence. You know, even besides the DSS coming out from the police, they are still supposed to be sharing certain intelligence with the police. The E department of the police still produce intelligence too, you know, and there should be a clearinghouse where this intelligence for national security should be shared among each other. But I think the silos have been existing where everybody is working on his own without sharing. But I think they are moving towards that direction now.
All right, so anyway, let's take a short break. From now, I believe that we have a few messages, but I'm also sure that some of the issues that you have raised, Frank Mba would want to react to them. But we'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Well, it seems that's what a lot of people have resorted to right now, prayers. They're talking about, you know, committing everything into the hands of God. But has the Nigerian police committed everything into the hands of God as well, or what are they doing about situations like what we just witnessed, what was just chronicled for us in Niger State? Over the Yuletide as well, people had challenges. You know, a lot of people thought very critically about how they're going to make trips to their hometowns or to be with their loved ones. And oftentimes it wasn't very pleasant. CP Frank Mba is still here with us in the studio. I'm sure you want to, first of all, respond to a number of issues raised by Mr. Amachree in Lagos and also take on this issue of banditry, which is really very sad to, you know, see on TV.
Okay, let me start from what Amachree said. And, of course, he captured the entire challenges clearly. Starting from the fact that the strength of the Nigeria police, the strength of the entire security forces in this country, whether you're talking about the police, the DSS, the Nigerian military, when you look at their strength and juxtapose that with the population of the country and then the landmass, you know that we are actually working on a very thin line, and we're actually miracle workers that we're keeping this country the way we're keeping them. Officers and men of Nigerian police force are working 24 hours, 7 days, 30 days a week, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and working round the clock to make sure that we're able to provide a safe and secure environment for our citizens to live in. I actually acknowledge the fact that indeed we've had challenges, particularly when it comes to issues of kidnapping and banditry. Like you also noted initially, the hub of kidnapping used to be in the southern part of this country. We've been able to stabilize situations in the southern part of this country. Most states in the southeast, where you used to have a lot of kidnappings today, we've been able to stabilize situations. And the south, we've also been able to stabilize situations in those areas. Our major problem today is actually in the northern part of the country. We are also dealing with this, and we will never check our responsibilities.
Why is it that the solutions that were employed in the southern part of the country, why are they not working for the northern part of the country?
Part of the problem with the northern part of the country is actually the land mass. If you look at the northern part of this country, take for example Niger State, for example. If you look at the size of Niger State is probably bigger than about 3 states in the south, all lumped together, and so even when you get distress calls from one particular part of the local community, it might take you like 4 hours. 5 hours, 3 hours for you to be able to get there. And so part of the solution, and beyond that, is also the fact that the northern part of this country is clearly closer to the Sahel region. If you look at the devastation that have happened in the Sahel region, the collapse of Muammar Gaddafi regime, the free flow of arms within that area of Libya to Niger, to Chad, to the destabilization of the Central African Republic, the challenges in Mali, the fight between the different factions of combatants in Mali. And these areas are clearly closer to the northern part of the country. So part of the things we've been doing has also been taking up the arms smuggling syndicate and taking them out. And of course, if you follow, you see that in the past 1 year, we've been able to dismantle quite a lot of these organized syndicates that are dealing with arms smuggling. And we need to begin to deal with some of those issues in order to weaken the armory and the holding capacity, the firearm holding of some of these bandits. If you also look at some of the specialized operations we've carried out, Kaduna-Abuja Highway hitherto, when the leadership of IGP Adamu came on board, was clearly impassable. Today, we've been able to stabilize the situation with the launch of Operation Pofada. Of course, once in a while you hear some skirmishes taking place there, guerrilla-like attack or staccato-like attacks. But in the main, we've been able to hold our ground and stabilize that situation. In Katsina State, for example, within the first 2 weeks of this year, we've been able to rescue 533 captives, and we've also been able to neutralize about 33 bandits.
Some people will say, well, I don't want to put any motive to it because they're Nigerians and they deserve to be rescued, even though some people will say you prioritize Katsina because the president is from there. What is happening in Niger State? Can you speak to the situation?
Now, the situation in Niger State is also receiving massive attention from us. What we've done in Niger State is actually to deploy the police air access to Niger. Again, that's to enable us close the gap, since we've discovered that the response time is usually longer because of their large landmass. So what we've done is deploy a police air access, deploy some operatives from the tactical, the STS, the Special Tactical Squad, deploy operatives from the IRT and some other specialized operatives who are currently on ground. They are working with the host police command. They are also collaborating with the Nigerian military, the DSS, and of course working in concert with the state government. We want to believe that the same way we've successfully stabilized Zamfara. And if you know the situation in Zamfara before now, Zamfara was practically turning into a killing field. But as I speak to you today, the situation in Zamfara is almost calm. We have been able to deal with the security challenges in Zamfara up to like 80%. We still have about 20% challenges, and by God's grace, we are replicating what we've done in Zamfara. We'll try to replicate them in Niger State, and it's just a matter of time, and we'll be able to deal a permanent blow.
Are they
on
really
the
land
bandits.
grabbers? The people who are attacking those people, is their motive to grab land from the people, from the natives?
Again, there are a combination of factors. There are, of course, there are some of the cattle rearers who actually combine cattle rearing with banditry. And then
Banditry to what end is the question?
economic. I mean, when you take person when you kidnap persons and all you want is ransom, then it's purely an economic crime.
Yeah, because one of the respondents there alluded to the fact that people are already leaving the area.
So it is a whole lot of these crimes are purely economic in nature, and again, there are also issues that has to do with migration. There are also some of these bandits we've arrested. We've also found out that they are not Nigerians. And that's also part of the reason why we are strengthening the security around the borders. The Inspector General of Police was in Niger recently, where he held meetings with his Nigerian counterparts. And all we're doing now is setting up a joint border patrol between the Nigerian police authorities and their Nigerian counterparts.
Is there a reason why you're reluctant to talk about land grabbing? I mean, is it a reality or not?
No, I don't really see it as essentially a land grabber thing. I think these are pure crimes, because if you say land grabbing, it's for me, you might be giving it a different coloration. For me, this is a crime. It is a crime. It is a crime in all facets, in all definitions.
Land grabbing will also be a crime.
And so I want to call it by its name. And that gives me that platform to begin to deal with it as a police officer.
You know, Mr. Mumba, I'd like to focus on something. You talked about how policemen are miracle workers. And I think that for a lot of Nigerians, when they sit, yes, we have grievances with the police, but for majority of Nigerians, when they sit and they, look at their police force, they will agree with you to a large extent that indeed, over the years, especially when we look at how Nigeria police has evolved, starting from the training, for instance. It's not today that Channels Television did a coverage of the Nigeria Police College, and see where people who are going to be protecting us are being trained. Thankfully, things were able to change. We don't know how perfectly they changed, but at least there was some improvement as a result of the searchlight which was beamed there. The question now is, within the force itself, after people have been recruited and after they become officers, what are we doing about boosting the morale of those, who are there so that they're able to give their best? The work itself is challenging enough. Only recently, you were promoted, thankfully, and no one can say you didn't deserve your promotion. However, it would seem that as a result of staccato promotions, it has caused bad blood within the police itself. Are these issues, important enough to the police to address so that at some point, we're not going, challenges are already difficult enough. We're not going to be going forward with people who do not feel any morale to be able to do the job.
Okay. Mark, I think you've taken me on a long ride, so let me start from somewhere. the truth again is, I'm glad you did a thorough analysis and actually admitted that looking at the background under which we function and looking at the very asphyxiating environment we operate, sometimes almost poisonous environment that we operate, it is indeed right for us to actually be called miracle workers. And the truth here is, no police agency anywhere in the world can rise above its society in terms of how the society wants it to operate. Every society, every community, every state gets the type of police it deserves. No matter how the police leadership tries, again, you must have the backing of the political authorities for you to make progress. And in terms of funding, in terms of provision of logistics, in terms of remuneration, in terms of retirement benefits, these are all the things that come together to determine how effective and how motivated a police force might be. If you are in a police establishment where your take-home pay can't really take you home, you are in a police establishment where if you die in the line of duty, your families, your kids, your wife are abandoned. If you are in a police agency where if you retire, you can't guarantee to live for the next 5 years. I mean, and you are in a police environment where your office accommodation is a problem for you, operational tools are problems, then certainly it will be difficult for you to give your best. We are glad that some of these things are receiving attention, but a lot still need to be done. For instance, even the piece of legislation that have regulated and guided how the police operate has been neglected. For over 77 years, the Nigeria Police Act was never touched, it was never amended. And that tells you how uncaring some previous regimes have been. And it took the current IG making so much effort, galvanizing the strategic stakeholders and working with the lawmakers and the executive to get this law eventually updated after 77 years. That itself should tell you that something has been fundamentally wrong. And that has been the same.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm not going to make light of the efforts of the IG because that was a very important piece of legislation which saw light of day. However, would you say that the police is shooting itself in the foot if its own men are aggrieved through an exercise which was carried out?
I will just come in. I will just come into that.
Let's quickly get to that because
and then let me get to that. If you also follow the trajectory of this present leadership of the force, since IGP Adamu came to power, a total of 121 and 51 persons have been promoted across all ranks, and within this number, 99,911 are members of the inspectorate and rank and file, which means he paid special attention to the junior ranks. And within the 2 years he has been in office, he has never done special promotion until recently. So he did special promotion only once in these 2 years he has been in office. We've seen some previous regimes where special promotions were done almost every 3 months. And those were the time where the complaints were hitting the rooftop. And so I see in him a man who is committed to actually playing by standards and walking his talk. And again, the leadership of the current Police Service Commission, if you also look at it, look at the current leadership of the Police Service Commission, they've also been very, very strict on issues of promotion. They follow seniority, they follow merit, and in very rare occasion, did they exercise their powers to approve special promotion. So I think we are moving out of that era where you have so much misgivings, so much complaints, so much challenge, so much abnormalities that are tied to promotions, and we might not have gotten to the promised land, but we are clearly way out of the desert.
Is there a message to your colleagues who feel very aggrieved about this?
Again, and in every sense of modesty, this is also a bit sensitive for me to talk about because I've just been recently promoted. So,
understandably.
And that's why I'm walking this line very carefully. But all I can say is that the current IGP, the current leadership of the Police Service Commission are committed to carrying out promotions that are merit-based, carrying out promotions that are in the most just and equitable manner. And that's the principle that have guided
Do you believe that
promotions.
their grievances will be looked into?
Clearly.
Okay.
Clearly.
Let's flip this to Lagos now. Ayo.
And just very quickly, Malkwe, ask CP Frankumba one question. You talked about the fact that there is a need for equitable, just, and fair promotion, and that the promotion usually comes based on rank, based on seniority, and all of that. But there are those who, from what Malkwe has said, there are those who complain that they have seen their junior officers promoted over them, and for which reason some of them have resigned, some have been rumored to resign because they are unhappy about that. Is that correct? Does that really happen? Do you get that complaint, just as you have said, that such things do happen in the force?
The truth again is I'm not actually a fit and proper person to speak on this issue because, promotions for police officers are carried out by the Police Service Commission. And so the much I've spoken is what I can actually speak. And I would rather advise that this further conversation on this should be, you should probably try to have further conversation on this topic with the appropriate authorities. And the appropriate authorities here will be officials of the Police Service Commission. But like I've said earlier on, the Police Service Commission is peopled by men of integrity. They are peopled by Nigerians who represent citizens from all walks of life. They represent the various geopolitical zones. They represent the various interest groups. They are professionals. They are people who have track record of integrity. And I trust them to be able to look at all the complaints and do what is right in each in each case.
We spoke about morale. You began this conversation about the numerical strength of our security agencies, and we took it to the level of the morale. If this is happening in the police, is it just or fair to say it's the same in every agency of security in the country? That would definitely affect the fight against insecurity in the country.
Yes, of course. The issue of morale, it's in most of the security agencies. The ones that I know personally about, like the DSS, the present DG came in there, and it was the first thing he addressed. If it was okay, he wouldn't have gone there, but it was the first thing he addressed and tried to make sure that people's morale is raised either by their promotion or their benefits or whatever, or trying to keep to the schedule. Because that's one problem we have in the security agencies where okay, if promotion is going to be for every 4 years or every 2 years, that schedule must be kept to. But when after 2 years you don't promote, then you move on again and everybody starts to feel one kind.
Most of the time, when we talk about security architecture, you can close with this. When we talk about security architecture, we're talking about strategies, we're talking about programs, Amachree, all of those things, funding. But how significant is this morale on the entire security architecture we're talking about here?
Morale is very, very important. Even in the military, without morale, nobody works. If the morale is not high, then nothing is going to happen. But how do you boost morale? You boost morale by giving the benefits of everybody to them and doing all the necessary things that you have to do. You see, it is not just money. Okay. It's not just money. If I'm in the war front and I'm going to be facing the enemy, and then, of course, my family is in the house, and, if I die, they push them out of the house, I will be worried. Okay. So it is very, very important.
All right. Well, Mokwe, it's over to you now. But first of all, I have to thank you very much, Dennis Amachree, security consultant and former DSS operative. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, Mokwe, you may want to ask CP Frank Kumba about the fact that, the PSC is usually, they usually act only on the recommendations of the IGP. So I don't know if that's relevant to the conversation as you close out on him.
I'm sure he can hear you as he wants to quickly respond to that.
I wonder why.
But I'd rather ask you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd rather ask you, because you said Happy New Year to Nigerians, what they can look forward to in this new year, especially with predictions to security and what the Nigerian police has in store for them.
For us, we will be deepening our processes and operations all across the country, particularly in the northern part of the country, where which has become the epicenter of some of the challenges we're having. We'll be adopting a community-driven approach, and so we'll be deepening our process, our implementation of community policing programs across the country. We will also be pursuing very, very rapidly and very aggressively our intelligence-led policing approaches. Thank God for the strengthening of the Force Intelligence Bureau and the expansion of the Force Intelligence Bureau, which is currently working with these partners, the DSS and the military intelligence.
Just quickly.
And we will also be adopting a technology-aided policing approach.
I want to really add this. The Judicial Commission sitting in all the states of the Federation, or most of the states of the Federation, are you monitoring, and what steps are you going to take to quickly address some of the outcomes of the judicial panel sittings?
We have police officers actually monitoring and participating in all the judicial commissions sitting across the bulk of the 36 states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory. We are collating, we're documenting events as they occur in those panels. And for us, whether you are looking at the NSAS or the post-NSAS events, there are lessons for us to be learned. And we'll be taking those lessons into our laboratory, and we'll be coming out with customized solutions to deal with some of those challenges we are seeing unveiling in some of those panels.
A fine place to leave it. Commissioner of Police Frank Kumba, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. He is the Force Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Police. Well, Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please stay with us.